This is Excalibur Heavy Battlecruiser, and today, after popular demand, we're going to teach you how to beat Star Eater. Now, last time we did a poll, it was pretty much a tie between Seraph and Star Eater, but this time around, it's less of a difference. Like, it's not even close now, which what people want. Alright, so let's enable debug mode. Then get to wave 120. We also need to, of course, level up. And from what I've tested myself, you can get like 36 upgrades before you encounter Star Eater. So that's what I'm gonna do. As for the build that I'm going to do personally, it's gonna be something pretty simple. It's gonna be the split shot, the assault. Obviously, I am going to pick up some of the mobility upgrades like agility, strafe, and so on. Because I keep on saying that mobility is the key of the game here. You know what? We can start to take him on. More than any other boss, Star Eater demands you to screen wrap. In fact, there is one phase where if you don't screen wrap, you will die. Or at least take a lot of damage. Okay, he does this phase, the laser phase, where it's better to just screen wrap or use blink. Or void slice to dodge it rather than just pass through it. Or try to avoid it. Now for this attack, you should try to figure out when he starts to ram you. If you don't do it well, he can really dish out the damage. Now for this attack, you try to stay still but move controllably instead of moving wildly. Not only do you risk running into the vortex, but those projectiles can also damage you pretty heftily. It's like Glaucus's attack, but probably even more damaging. Alright, this is where screen wrapping becomes essential. There are two things to keep track of. One, yourself, and two, Star Eater's body segments, especially the head. If you try to come close to its head during this phase, it'll try to electrocute you, so keep your distance from it. Right now that I get my distance, I can safely wreak some more damage on this guy. When you're playing Annihilation especially, it's important to take care of his ads as well. Because unmanaged, they can also be a big nuisance. Okay, this phase is not as scary as the last one. The flamethrower attack is quite a bit easier to deal with than the laser phase. Uh-oh, this is where its second phase begins. It's also a good idea to try to take care of all of these asteroids, just in case you don't get cock-blocked by them. But yeah, if you move carelessly, you take a lot of damage like that. I only passed through like 4 bullets, and that still took out my shields. Right, let's keep my distance. Now thankfully these hoops don't deal that much damage if you pass by them quickly enough. They're way less scary than Crucible's hoops. That being said, this phase is also very dangerous. And I just happen to be on the unluckier end because of the Celestials showing up. Not gonna lie, sometimes the Celestials can be more dangerous than the boss itself. Right, let's get out of here. Yeah, once again, keep your distance. And there we have it, the Star Eater boss fight. Now admittedly this build had pretty good mobility, so instead, we're going to try a build that doesn't have that luxury. Right, once again enable debug mode. Here we go. And we're also going to rely on a close range weapon. I'm a bit torn between pulse and swords, because both these options do somewhat counter Star Eater in a way. Swords can somewhat counter Star Eater's projectile attacks, and pulse can deal damage to multiple segments. Me personally, I'm gonna go for pulse. Really gonna lean in onto that slow range build type. First of all, I will not be taking any mobility upgrade, so this really will be a test for me. I'll even be taking a whole bunch of drones, just so I can, like, highlight the importance of timing things well. Oh yeah, Grandeur, that'll make things even worse for me. Which is somehow ironically what I want here. Guess I'll get mines. Alright, let's go. I'm relying purely on my drone to deal damage here. Yeah, it's time to move out of the way. Once it starts swinging the other way, you move as fast as you can to the other side. When it's doing the dash phase, it's a good idea to stick close to the border. And then time things. Depending on your reaction time, you may need to adjust your timing and rely more on precognition. Oh yeah, I'm gonna keep my distance as much as I can. I will say, drones are actually dealing a surprisingly decent amount of damage. Yeah, let's get out of here. Alright, this is where you really need to time things well. Also, if you do happen to get stuck, it's a better idea to just try to nudge your way out as soon as you can. Because after a certain amount of times getting impacted, the game will shove you out of Star Eater's hitbox. Instead of trying to fight the knockback, you accept the knockback. But that is a last resort, because as we all know, if you're not careful with your movement, you can die pretty heavily. So yeah. Now we shall try it with a close range build specifically. Yeah, I'm just gonna pick up something that doesn't heal. Just gonna use Torrent. This also does highlight why you do want some range, even for builds that normally don't have any. Alright, let's go. Yeah, my encoder is not liking any of this. Move out of the way. Well, he's not doing any attacks, I guess you can attack him. Oh, he's doing this phase. Let's move out of the way. Admittedly, with this one, since my computer isn't very powerful, it slows down the game a lot. But even if your game's running at full speed, I still recommend doing this tactic. Time things and get out of the way. Also destroy these asteroids before they become a bigger issue and box you in. Alright, let's keep my distance. Hopefully make sure I take as few bullets as possible. Yeah, thankfully these hoops don't deal that much damage. get out of here. This is why you should be a bit careful when it comes to flanking Star Eater. Now, by the way, even though his head does take a lot of damage, you can still damage him, of course, by hitting the body. Alright, last thing is a Leviathan build, because this is the trickiest one by a long shot. And it's mainly due to the fact that Leviathan has such a long hitbox. Ignore that. Alright, there we go. Now, once again, I really recommend Adaptive Armor. This thing saves lives. Oh yeah, there's hidden power. It's usually definitely a good idea to have Void Slice earlier on, but if you can't manage it, then I'm still gonna try to go through this without Void Slice and just blink. Now, Polar Inversion is pretty risky. I usually take it personally, but it's okay if you don't want it. Alright, let's go. Now more than ever, you want to rely a lot on precognition. You want to make light scrapes at him instead of trying to take everything down all at once. And also want to minimize your exposure to the head from the attacks. At least the projectile attacks. And for the laser ones, you want to do the best you can to avoid exposure to it in general. This will definitely require a lot of practice. But eventually you can get it right. Alright, I'm gonna start a coil. Move my head out of the way real quick. And I'm actually dealing a decent amount of damage. I start a coil, and just as he's about to ram, I move my head out of the way. Here I just keep my distance. And make sure not to get sucked into the vortex. You can also try riskier attacks, but I generally don't recommend it. Unless you were trying to unleash a whole bunch of medium stacks. In which case, it can actually work out. Now, as a final test, I shall play a very suboptimal snake build. Like, very suboptimal. Yeah, I'm gonna be using Grenade of all things. And then for shields, there's no shield that is like less stats than shockwave. It's just stat wise, it's pretty mid. Like this time I'm really going suboptimal. Like I can still see someone trying this, but it's still like very suboptimal. Now this is an actually decent combo, so I may have like... So that one may actually be a good combo there. But otherwise, most of these things don't have the best synergy, you could say. Yeah, I'm going real whack now. Like I even took turret, of all things. An ally. Alright. This is the very suboptimal build. Yeah, you want to minimize your exposure to the head itself. Obviously, it's better to just try to dodge everything, but if you cannot do that, do that instead. Here, I'm taking a more cautious route. Okay, I'm starting to suffer. This is one thing I will say about Star Eater. It does require you to have a somewhat competent build. Because that one really did not have a very good synergy. And that's why it died. So even though it is fun to mess around with builds, it is still somewhat important to like know some synergies and stuff. Stuff like adaptive armor being a godsend for Leviathan. Or not relying on shield cooldown for Leviathan as well. Admittedly, these are more so Leviathan-centric problems, but they still somewhat exist on other bodies as well. Having said that, you can still minimize these problems if you know the correct techniques. With that being said, my name is Excalibur Heavy Battlecruiser, and as always, may the forks be with you all.